Welcome back to the Waterboyz episode 6. I'm Justin Ehrenberg, a co-host on the show.
I'm Grant Harrison, co-host as well. Later on, we'll talk to Leigh Read, rugby coach, rugby player, basketball player, soccer player. He's played just about anything. Played a little American football there in England too. He'll talk to us about sports, mental health, suicide prevention, depression, really a lot. And it's going to be exciting to talk to him.
Yeah, it was quite a fascinating interview. Listen to what he had to say, and he had a lot to say on a lot of different topics, but I thought it went really well, and we can't wait for you guys to hear. But first, we're going to get to a little bit of sports action. Over the past week, there's been a lot to talk about. So, Grant, you want to start her off?
Yeah, a little trouble in the West. Suns and Warriors are kind of commanding the West right now.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, Suns on a 10-game win streak right now.
Yeah, and Chris Paul's been playing really, really good basketball. Devin Booker's leading the team with 25 points per game. In terms of scoring,
25 points in 42 games is pretty impressive.
Like averaging wise, yeah, pretty good. He's definitely an all-star caliber player this year. So is Chris Paul. Honestly, I just think they're building off of what they had last year, where they made it to the NBA Finals and lost in 6 games to the Milwaukee Bucks. I honestly just think they're building off of what that team already was last year. The chemistry's getting stronger between Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and Devin Booker. And Miles Bridges is coming on as a great role player for them. It's just a well-rounded team, I think.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of changes, so that really helps you, especially in this way of push, second half of the season. It's going to be interesting to see how they carry that on to the finals.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see down the stretch after the Allstar break how this team does, and because they're 40-9 right now as of time of recording on January 31st, they're 40-9. So it'll just be interesting to see. The Warriors are second place. I think they're like 4 games back of Phoenix right now.
3-point something, but yeah, we'll round it up to 4. 7-3 in the last 10 games. So
yeah, and this is despite Steph Curry's terrible shooting ever since he broke the record at Madison Square Garden. I saw a meme, actually. It was Steph Curry's shooting stats are starting to look more like tour dates, because it's like 3 for 21, like 7 for 28 or something like that. It's just they've just been so bad. But despite that, they're playing great. Klay Thompson's getting back into form.
Yeah, Curry and Klay, that's a deadly combo. So you put those two together, it's going to be pretty interesting.
They still don't even have their second overall draft pick from last year, James Wiseman, the center out of Memphis. He was great last year, like just starting out. He was averaging like 13 points a game or something like that, 5 rebounds, just like bench minutes. But he'll be a big part of the team, I think, when he comes back from injury, if he comes back from injury this year. And Andrew Wiggins has stepped up his game in a big way. He was named an all-star starter, and the rest of the all-star starters were for the West were Steph Curry, LeBron James, John Morant, Andrew Wiggins, and then I'm forgetting the 5th one right now. I don't know if you saw them.
No, I didn't get too good of a look at it, but there's definitely some controversy there. They stirred the pot a little bit. So, I don't know. Who do you think you should have been in?
And the other one was Nikola Jokic. Sorry. For me, I definitely think Chris Paul should have been a starter over John Morant. I don't think John Morant's like anything. I don't want to take anything away from John Morant, because he's had an unbelievable season and he's like taken Memphis to the next step almost. Like, they're a really, really good team. But I just think you got to respect the top in the Western Conference record at 40-9. And a big part of why they're winning is Chris Paul and his leadership and his floor general type leadership on the floor. He's just basically a double in terms of points and assists per night. So I think Chris Paul deserved to get in as a starter, and the big one is Andrew Wiggins. A lot of people don't think he should have been named a starter. What's your thoughts on it?
He's definitely got a good role that he plays for his team, but when you look at him throughout the conference, he's not a starter.
He's only averaging like 18.1 points per game this year, which isn't even like one of his career highs. I understand, like, I know he's stepped up his field goal percentage. Like, he's not taking as many shots because he's not on Minnesota, he's on Golden State, and the majority of the shots are going to go to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, those types of players. So I understand he's improved his 3-point shooting. It's like 41% for the year. But I just think that you could have put Devin Booker in over him too, in my opinion. Luka Doncic should have been in there too, maybe.
Like, there's a lot of people that could go in over him, but like I said, he's got a role that he plays on his team, and he does it pretty well compared to, some other people in his position, but that doesn't make him a starter by any means.
Yeah, he's one of the best two-way players in the league right now, in my opinion. He's just really improved his two-way game. But in the East, they're it's heating up over there a little bit. It's really close. Like, from 1st to 8th, it's only like separated by 6 games in terms of record. Some teams haven't played as many games as other teams, so it's between 6 games because of that. But Cleveland's still looking really good. They're still looking like they could have a serious run. I actually saw, I think it was Stephen A. Smith the other day on First Take say, if this team had LeBron James, they could go win a championship right now.
Yeah, Stephen A. is known for that kind of, far-reaching stuff, but I think he's kind of right there. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure. I think he's on a good track. Like, and but the thing is, could you see LeBron demanding a trade out of LA to go to Cleveland again?
No. That city has just gone through heartache after, filled hearts after heartache of just LeBron James coming back and leaving. And, you can't do that anymore. LeBron James, I don't want to say he's happy in LA. He certainly had some hardship there, but he's not coming back to Cleveland.
I don't think so.
No.
The Cleveland Cavaliers, though, they're 30-20 at the time of recording. They're looking pretty hot. Team that's been disappointing to me is kind of Boston. I thought they would have been better this year so far.
Yeah. Atlanta's kind of,
they're only 26. They're only one game above 500. They're only 26-25 on the year.
Yeah. And, Atlanta's looking a little better. 7-game win streak.
Yeah. See.
And now they face Toronto. So
at the time of Allstar voting is when Atlanta at the time of All-Star voting, they were 17-25.
Yeah.
And somehow Trae Young got in. Like, he's having a great year, but with that kind of record, I don't know how you get a starter role, because like an all-star to me is like you're carrying your team to the next level. You know what I mean? And you're 17-25 at the time of voting. Like, I understand now. I understand now that like you're 24-25 and you're on a 7-game win streak, but I don't know. That's one up for debate.
Right now, though. So it doesn't, in my eyes, it doesn't really matter. What happened at the time of voting. It's how he handled it, right? And he took that role. He took that name as all-star, and really made a name for himself lately.
Toronto's looking good. Like, compared to they were supposed to be a rebuild team. They've like fast paced the rebuild. It's almost like instead of like a 3-4 year rebuild, it's like a 1 year semi rebuild, and now they're 8th place in the Eastern Conference. Like, I think this team's really good, or not really good. Sorry, I would say they're a playoff team, but I don't think they're gonna make it out of the first round, to be realistic. But I do think the 4th overall pick of Scotty Barnes has been a huge factor, and they did claw out a triple overtime win against the first place in the Eastern Conference Miami Heat Saturday night. So
Yeah.
that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's some heat, and they're going to take that into their matchup against Atlanta, and I think Toronto's going to pull that one out.
They're the first. I don't know if you saw this. The first team in NBA history to have all 5 starters play over 50 minutes.
That's impressive. That's really impressive. Now, how that will impact you later in the season when you need that stamina, who knows? But
yeah, they're logging heavy minutes because their bench is giving them nothing. But
yeah, and Trae Young, I know John Collins isn't a bench player, but Trae Young has John Collins to back him up, and that's what he needs.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to a little bit of hockey action. You got a couple hot teams in the league right now.
Yeah, Toronto.
Toronto's looking pretty good too. Their rookie.
But Avalanche is
yeah. So Avalanche just finished out the month of January, collecting a possible 31 out of 32 points for the month, finishing 15-0-1. They're pretty hot, I'd say. And although they did lose Nathan McKinnon to that hit from Taylor Hall about a week ago now, where he is now out with facial reconstruction, is what they're calling it, from that broken nose he got. I don't know if you saw the picture, but it was like the nose was like boom, boom. It was so far over, but
yeah, it was like a sideways V, but that's not good. But the fact they've been able to keep a little bit of that simmer without McKinnon, big. Because if he goes down to the playoffs, you got a good,
you got
line to back it up and keep that point.
Kadri playing the best year of his life right now. He's got like 60 some points, I'm pretty sure right now, 61 or 60 points in 39 or 40 games. He's well above a point per game, definitely deserving of an All-Star this year. And I think he can carry the load of what McKinnon's bringing to the table for the time being well enough that the Avalanche shouldn't slip off at all. I think, in my opinion, they should just be okay without McKinnon. I don't think they're going to go and have a perfect month, basically a perfect month again, but I do think they're going to stay hot. Cale Makar is playing unbelievable. Devin Taves, really, really good defenseman that they got from the Islanders a couple of years ago. I can't believe they only got him for 2 second-round picks, but
yeah. And on the other side, like I said, Toronto's looking pretty good. 3-game win streak. Austin Matthews, 16th in points, but you know who he's tied with is Carolina's Sebastian Aho. So Carolina's looking good too. You got, of course, Austin Matthews looking good. So
I want to go back to Toronto for a second. I don't know if you saw, but Mitch Marner had like 100 games in a row without scoring a power play goal. And then in the last 3 out of 4, he scored a power play goal.
That'd be.
So
that's the way to turn that around. And
it's quite a turnaround for him. He's getting better on the power. I wouldn't say he's definitely not known as a goal scorer. He's more of a first assist type of guy. He's definitely the playmaker. But to break the streak or break the drought, I should say, of not scoring a power play goal is pretty good, considering when your team needs you most, and that's a power play, I would say, or when you have an advantage, you got to be able to score. And it's just a confidence booster for him, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and to have Morgan Riley on that team too, pretty impressive. And he's having a pretty good season, I'd say. So
their defense is pretty solid, I would say, and their goaltending's, and they're getting really good goaltending under Jack Campbell. He's up for on pace for a Vezina Yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Nomination. That's the word.
Yeah,
Up for a Vezina
I'm wondering
nomination
where
this
you're
year.
going.
No, he's up for a Vezina nomination this year, or should be, in my opinion. But he's looked really good, and like you said, Carolina's looked good. I'd still say they're not the best team in that division, though. I would
But
say,
Sebastian Aho is getting a little help from my good buddy Mr. Smackstaff.
yeah,
Yeah,
that kid's insane. That
he's
kid's
looking good. He's
yeah.
looking good.
He's the first one to pull off the magician or Michigan, sorry, in the NHL.
Yeah,
He's so skilled with the puck. It's just fun to watch him play, and
yeah.
he's
Canes have been
really
a fun team to watch in these
they
last 3
are
years.
they
But
they have a
I
really good
really,
coach too. They have a really good coach too.
Carolina, it's a fun team to watch. So it's going to be interesting to see how they could, turn that pizzazz, turn that, dazzling puck skills into winning some more games and, turn it around for their season.
Yeah, I think Carolina is definitely a playoff team for sure. I think they're a team that can go deep into the playoffs. I don't know how far deep because that division with Pittsburgh, New York
Yeah.
Rangers, Washington, it's such a good division in my
It's some
opinion.
tough competitors, some tough
Hmm.
competitors. So they got to really learn how to, handle the big games well and keep that ride through the
They
easy.
they got to win those big games to get home ice advantage is my
Yeah,
thing. Um,
it helps
against
with that.
division rivals. Um, moving on to what was the biggest thing of the weekend. We had the AFC or Championship Sunday, I should say, in AFC and NFC style. And Grant, I'll let you take the floor here because I know you have a few things to say about your Chiefs.
Yeah, Kansas City. I love my Chiefs, but it came down to the second half of football, and it's embarrassing that we didn't learn our lesson from Week 17 when we played the Bengals and when we couldn't execute the second half. In this game, we only got 3 points in the second half, and it came from Harrison Butker's foot. It's just embarrassing to see Patrick Mahomes play that conservative, but it also comes down to defense. We couldn't execute. We couldn't hold Joe Burrow. And, we were playing like we had the lead. We did, but you can't trust a lead against that team with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow.
See, for me, like I understand that side, but what happened for me is they had to double Jamar Chase. They knew they were going to have to double Jamar Chase the whole game.
Yeah.
And T. Higgins stepped up and made some catches and got over. He had 103 receiving yards in the game.
Yeah.
And I thought he stepped up when he was needed to. And that's what kind of gave the Bengals a better opportunity of winning the game, in my opinion, just because you knew that you needed to not just focus on Jamar Chase going into this game, in my opinion.
Yeah. But, we put two safeties high to cover the deep. We played that Bengals game on a couple of those deep catches, two safeties high. That opens up the middle, and you can't open up the middle against Joe Burrow because that's his sweet spot. He can throw deep ball, he can throw the slants real well, but in the middle, that's where he's at all day, and you can't open that up against him.
So I just have one question for you about your Chiefs. I'm not gonna rag you or anything.
Okay. All right.
Before halftime, there's a controversial call. 5 seconds left. Would you have went for it, or would you have took 3 points and just said, let's go to halftime up 14?
It's looking back, you can always make those calls,
Or,
but
sorry, 21, I think is what it would have been, sorry.
yeah, looking back, you can always make those calls, say, okay, safer option, but you have Patrick Mahomes throwing to either Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, you also have some good running backs. You got McKinnon, who's really stepped up these past few weeks, made a name for himself in the playoffs. So really any call there from a couple yards out, a few yards out for half, that's a good call by Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Because it works, he's a genius. And we got those 4 extra points. If it doesn't, and we go into overtime because, everyone knows McPherson for the Bengals could probably kick a 60-yarder if he needed to. If it came down to it, and Joe Burrow could probably get those 4 yards to get him there. It's probably going to come back and bite us either way. Bengals are going to play.
Here's the thing, though. I agree with going for it, but do you think it was dumb to do a screen pass instead of a quick slant into the end zone?
No. The Chiefs playbook is extensive. So whatever came from that play, whatever was supposed to, if there was a missed blocking route, whatever, it's hard to tell. It looks weird. Every Chiefs play in the red zone kind of looks a little weird the first 3 seconds of it, but they made something happen. And Tyreek Hill, if he would have gotten in, best play, Tyreek Hill, what a receiver, Patrick Mahomes, what a quarterback, Andy Reid, what a play caller. But it just didn't work. And sometimes in football, that's the thing. And sometimes it doesn't work. But I'm not knowing Andy Reid for it.
Yeah, I understand. It was for Tyreek Hill to even get in the end zone, he had to not only beat Eli Apple, which he didn't do, but then right after Eli Apple, there was 2 or 3 more Bengals right there that he would have had to get by. And I don't think he would even have a chance to get by them.
Yeah, so, I think there was a missed blocking route there, or assignment, I should say. But, Patrick Mahomes could have checked down. Yeah. I think I saw someone open in the end zone. Couldn't tell you who. But it's a good play call. It's pretty much a good toss. It doesn't look good, but it's the right idea.
I do think that the Cincinnati Bengals are a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
And
I'm rooting for him because if I'm going to lose to a team, well, I should say if my Chiefs are going to lose to a team, I want that team to do well. So A, it doesn't make us look bad. B, helps the AFC out.
Yeah, I think AFC's in good hands for young quarterbacks.
Oh yeah,
good hands.
Name a team that was in the playoffs. They've got a pretty good quarterback behind them, apart from the Steelers. I'm sorry, but I gotta say,
well, he's retired now, so
he was a great career quarterback.
Yeah,
but this year,
and even quarterbacks that didn't make the playoffs, like Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson.
Oh yeah.
So
great quarterbacks, and Lamar Jackson obviously had a tough season with injuries, but he's going to come back stronger. So switch it up.
Yeah.
For a little pivot point to the NFC, we had a little fourth quarter comeback.
Yeah, 49ers blew that game in my opinion. And there was one play that stood out from it all for me. The dropped interception that Matthew Stafford threw. He tried to throw in a 50-yard bomb, underthrew it by 10 yards. No other player in the area, and Buddy gets the ball, drops into his chest, and falls right through his arms. It was just unfortunate. I thought if they would have got that interception, game would have been over.
Yeah, DBs are just receivers who can't catch, and that's a prime example of one. He's a great athlete, but sometimes in those
I feel bad for the guy.
Ball gets a little slippery.
I feel bad for him.
Well, I think Rams, you and I were talking about this. Rams have a great team that they just put together. And to have that, camaraderie, connection, chemistry, whatever you want to call it, after all those changes, that's real impressive. But, Matthew Stafford going to his first Super Bowl with Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham,
Cam Akers, Sony Michel.
Yeah.
Got a lot of weapons.
Defense got Von Miller, Aaron Donald, 2 of probably the most prolific defensive players in the last 5 years, I'd say.
Leonard Floyd, Jalen Ramsey. Long Junior's having a great postseason too.
Oh yeah, really
it's just a well-rounded team, I think. If you have to double Donald, which you always have to do, that leaves Von Miller to eat all day. It's a well-rounded team, and I think Odell Beckham, in my opinion, on the offensive side of the ball, showed that he was not the problem in Cleveland. Just my hot take.
That is a hot take because Odell Beckham is a great receiver, but unreliable to say the least.
Ever since he's been
he had some problems in New York.
Yeah, he's been reliable since he's been on
Where
the
he had
Rams.
he had a decent team around him in New York, especially in the beginning of his career.
Yeah, in the beginning.
And then he fell off a little bit. And then he went to Cleveland. Now I think he's got his stuff together. But
head on his shoulders.
I think Cleveland was the problem with Odell.
I think it was just Baker.
No, I think it was the offensive side in Cleveland. They certainly had a little rockiness, but he had some good teammates with him.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on the defensive side. He had Myles Garrett, and he could have, taken some Myles Garrett stops and turn them into some turnarounds. But
yeah,
it's hard to, go back.
I want to go back to the championship game just for 1 second before we turn it to Leigh. Do you think, in your personal opinion, just block out all the noise?
Okay.
Is Jimmy Garoppolo a good enough quarterback to stay in San Francisco, or do you think they're getting rid of him?
One more year. I think it's going to be what she said when Alex Smith was kind of, wrapping things up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's, he's a good quarterback. I think he's going to find a team. I think he's going to have some success there. But I think it's going to be some divided snaps next year with him in this draft pick that they picked up. Because that draft
Trey
pick
Lance.
Trey Lance, that's right. Remind me. Trey Lance, he looks like a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So
he does.
Now he has Jimmy G to kind of guide him, show him the ropes. He has him in practice. Jimmy G and Lance, they're gonna have some conversations Monday through Saturday.
I think it's gonna be a QB battle every week, in my opinion.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that transitions, but I think Jimmy G is coming back for another year at San Francisco.
You think?
And then after that, I don't think so.
Do you think he's good enough offensively to carry a team, or do you think he's getting carried like everyone says he is?
Yeah, he's definitely got some real good help around him. He's a good leader, but he can't lead that offense like people expect from a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's real tough to see him as, an Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady type. We'll get to Tom Brady in a second too. It's real tough to see him as that type. And, like I said, good quarterback, but not one of the greats.
No, I don't think so. But moving on to Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. Retired or not? That's your call, Justin. I took the Jimmy G talk. You take the Tom Brady talk.
Yeah. I honestly didn't even think about this. I should have thought about this before we record, but
yeah,
I can't.
It was very interesting to see.
I can't see him retiring. And not because I don't think he was going to retire. I think he honestly was going to retire. But because someone in his inner circle leaked the story, I think that just pissed him off. And he's just going to say, for you guys, I'm coming back one more year. And I'm going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I can't see him retiring. I thought before it was announced that he was going to Tampa Bay, I was like, Tom Brady's done. And then he just proved me wrong. He's an old fella in this league. He's 44?
Yeah, what's interesting and what's always been interesting about his retirement status is he's always said he wanted to play till 45. So
Yeah.
for him to retire 1 year before that kind of is like like ball out to left field type thing, because
Yeah.
it's just not expected. Because for me, I always thought he was going to play till 45 because he keeps on saying it. That's what his brand is always developed for. Like, he's going to play till 45. This is why the TB12 method works. I can play till 45. So I think he's going to play till 45, and I think he'll come back for one more year and then call it quits.
Yeah.
I that's just my
No way.
opinion.
No way after losing to the Rams like that is he calling it.
I don't think
He,
so. But
he wants another good shot.
if he retires, I think Gronk's gone too, which is something to keep in mind with them two and Tampa Bay. Like, if Gronk's gonna retire, Brady might retire. But if Brady does retire, I think Gronk's definitely gone.
Oh, definitely. I it's really tough to see a Tampa Bay offense without Gronk and with Brady.
Mm-hmm.
So, going to be interesting to see there. But I guess we'll know in August where we stand.
Yeah.
So, before we get to Leigh, just wanted to say, announcement, February 5th, Six Nations Rugby is coming back. So I'll be real excited to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it. I think it's going to be really cool to hear about. So,
okay. I'll make you a rugby fan before September.
I mean, I've always had a little bit of interest in rugby. I've just never picked up on all the rules about rugby. But I think it's a fun game to watch, and I think it has a lot of similarities to football. So,
but speaking of rugby, we present to you Leigh Read. We hope you enjoy. So here we are with Leigh Read, head coach. Are you head coach or assistant coach of Mudmen?
Yeah, no, I guess I sort of headed up, but we're a group of coaches. We call it the Circle of Trust. So we find it better that we all have a say. I guess if it needs to hit the fan, then yours truly deals with it. But you always find with a group of coaches and the Mudman group of coaches in the last couple of years, it works better. So I'm one of them.
Exactly. So group of trust, we'll say, for the interview here, but just coming off a 2021 Caledonia Cup win, as well as the McCurdy Cup win. How does it feel to come off winning the Maritimes this year?
Special, very special. I mean, the history of it, it's only the second time in 98 years that the trophy's on this island. And the last time was 2 to 3 years ago, 2018. And I watched that from my hospital bed, so I didn't get to be there that day. It was at UPI. So it was the start of a crazy journey for me. So to be able to be part of the coaching team to bring it back to the island was very special. But this season was really kind of a very interesting one. It was a reconnection piece. We set no expectations. And so knowing that the minute this group crossed the white line, they were going to set their own expectations. So it was a very special time. Very special.
Yeah. So you said hospital bed. We'll get to that later, talk about that. But growing up from England, you played a lot of sports. Which sport came first and why?
So rugby at first, I guess. I was 7 years of age, 7 years of age. So I'll be going in my 48th year of rugby, which is kind of crazy. My dad played and my brother was slightly younger. There was really any sort of junior rugby. It was only school rugby then. So you were running around practicing. And then there's soccer and tennis and golf and everything really. In England, you play every sport you can because it's seasonal in many, many ways. So we're very lucky to be able to play it all. But rugby's always been in my heart more than anything. Yeah.
So how did you get started in that?
My dad was a big influence on that. And dad was 6'4" and 260 pounds and a big guy running around, but taught me the values of rugby, what it stood for, and the reasons why you play it. It's the toughest game in the world. You cross the white line and you respect the person that you tackle, you put them down safely so they can get up again. And it was a game I wanted to play because of that. And it had the physicality, but also huge fundamentals of what's right and wrong. So
I was going to ask, is it something that you were maybe some parents like to force their kids into doing sports? Was it something that you were kind of forced into doing since your dad was a part of it? Or did you just generally just pick up an interest in rugby right away?
It's a really good question. My dad was an athlete and my mum was a gymnast. So we were all sports was in our whole family. But my mum and dad were very young. They were 18 and 16 when they had me, and 19 and 17 when they had my brother. So you can imagine we went everywhere as a family. One thing that my mum and dad really shared with us was to try everything. Like try everything. Badminton, table tennis, trampolining, you name it, we tried it. And very lucky in the schools in the 70s and 80s in England, PE was every day, or physical education was every day. So we were doing something all the time. And I had a rugby teacher from Wales, and a phys ed teacher from Wales, and I had one also from Sunderland. So he was massively into soccer or football. So we had everything. But honestly, we tried everything all the time. So we're very, very lucky.
That's perfect. So you actually did play quite a amount of sports: soccer, tennis, rugby, cricket, American football. What was your first experience with sport? Was it rugby with your old man?
Do you know what? No, it probably wasn't in a sense. It was probably school sports day. I know it sounds kind of weird, but my first real memory was running around and jumping over hurdles and just the speed. I was very small and very fast. So it was really cool to be able to run around on sports day. That was probably the first thing that ever got me into the really excitement part of it. And then as you go through school, we were lucky that we played all school sports, so soccer and rugby and cricket and everything else. So, yet again, it was seasonal. So I was very lucky that all year long I was playing sport. And I just went from one to the other, to the other, to the other. But the one that really stuck, two that really stuck, soccer and rugby were the two that really stuck with me as the ones, because I think because they're team sports, right?
I was gonna ask which of the four sports that you played in England or growing up was your favorite to play between soccer, tennis, cricket, and football?
All different sports. I mean, 3 team sports and a single sport, but all massive hand-eye coordination sports. Rugby definitely, because it's camaraderie. You put everything on the line for rugby, right? You put yourself in places that you really shouldn't put yourself in. But at the same time, if you look after the person next to you, then you're going to be pretty cool, pretty safe. So definitely rugby, soccer. Cricket's a weird one. It takes too long sometimes, but it's kind of nice when it's hot and sunny and you're standing out in the field and the ball's coming towards you and you don't see it for very often and it's kind of relaxed. And then there's the competitiveness of tennis, which tennis in England is massive. And I was very lucky to be part of a really good club and played it through school as well. So.
Yeah, sorry,
go ahead.
So England has a long history of rugby and some great legends that came out of there. Obviously, rugby was invented in England, but who besides your father did you look up to in England rugby? Was it?
You probably don't even know. It's a guy called Mike Teague, and 2 guys, Mike Teague and Mike Skinner, and they were both flankers, back row players, and they were just lads from a normal background, farming background, who just came through amateur rugby. Professional rugby didn't start till 95, 96, guys. So everything was amateur and you played for clubs. And if you played for clubs, you were lucky you might get a job with somebody who was putting money into that club, right? So, but Teague and Skinner were just something different. They were the guys that were naturally strong. They didn't really train in the sense of strength and conditioning coaches. These were farming boys that were just built solid. But, they're 100%ers. Right? You can't get better than 100%er. And I was just in awe of that. And so for me, once there was a lot of rugby being watched, but when it came to TV, which didn't probably happen until 80s, 90s, these 2 guys stood out. They were just different and they were just strong, big boys. And it gave you confidence that actually big guys could run around and play and be seen.
So were you always a forward?
No, I started off as a fullback at 10 years of age. Little skinny, 5 foot something, loads of hair, running around the back, playing fullback, which I loved. Then wing, center, and then as I grew through, and then went from up to 15 years of age, I was 5'5", and then 15 to 80, and I ended up being 6'5". So as I grew and grew, I came into the forwards, and then lock, play flanker, and then 8. So I pretty much anywhere and everywhere apart from scrum half. Certainly not the front row. But anywhere else, pretty much.
So I just want to say, even though you just said cricket was like hard to get a hold of, you did end up playing semi-pro in it. So you must have been half decent at what you were doing.
Well, it was provincial. It wasn't paid for or anything like that. It was through the school system. So and it was good. It was good fun. It was well put together. But yeah, not really paid or any semi-pro sounds these days that you get paid for it. But it was it was like everything in school and growing up, that if you went after it and you played it, then it was a hand-eye coordination sport. So it was pretty cool for me.
So how was your school structured?
It's really different. You go infant school, middle school, and then secondary, which is 11 to 18 years of age. And that's, so you can imagine putting your junior high and high school all in one. And so you know what you're like on the first day of grade 7. Can you imagine walking into rural at that age, or one of the big schools here on the island, and finding your way? It's pretty tough, pretty tough. And it doesn't matter whether you've been the big fish in the school before or you're great at sport. You've got a man at 18 years of age looking down at a toddler, right? So
And was
scary times.
Is that like from day one, like you knew what your place was in a school like that?
Yeah. I said in my interview that I did with Bell Let's Talk, first day I had a sports bag wrapped around my head and told basically that I was going to continue to go on until they decided it was going to stop. And it was pretty awful. And you had to deal with it. And in the end, it's unfortunately, even if it's not in your being, you have to deal with it the same way that they're being to you. So my friends could see it all happening. It wasn't happening to them, so I couldn't exactly turn to them and ask them for support, because the minute they gave me support, then they were going to get it, right? So you just don't do that. You got to try and work it out yourself. But there was a lot of times in between getting it done, a big period of time where you're just petrified. Doesn't matter where you are. You're at school, you're at home. They got in my head that they could get me at home if they wanted to. And it was a tough time. School in England in the 80s is not a fun place to be.
So that obviously had to develop a little bit of a grit for you and a little chip on the shoulder. And those are two values I think, carries into any sport. But more than that, American football. So you played with London Blitz for a little bit.
That was fun. That was I got into that through my brother-in-law, who's Canadian, who came over to London. That's how I met my wife. And then he came over and he played for SMU and then the Bears, the Golden Bears, and then came over to teach. And I met Cindy and told him, I was playing rugby and everything else. And he's like, you should just come play. And I'm a huge lover of American football anyway. I've been watching it since the 80s. So I love the game. I just never had a chance to play it. So went along, watched the game and thought, this will be fun. And I got to say, it was 2 amazing years. It was kind of funny because I've got a trophy in my bar and it says Rookie of the Year, and I was 32.
What position?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
What's that? Sorry.
What position?
Defensive end and tight end. And at the time, because I played fullback and I couldn't play special teams, so I was doing all the kicking as well. So it was kind of fun. It was crazy couple of years. You got a 6'5", 270, 280 pound kicker. It's kind of, but but at the same time, I knew what I was doing. So it was, So it's funny that trophy sits, and I do giggle about it because to get a rookie trophy at 30, no matter what it was. But it was a great game. It's very structured, and you really, the playbook. I remember giving me the playbook on the first day of practice. It was like, what the hell, right? But if you don't, and you're out of the place in the wrong place at the wrong time, in a tiny unit place, you can either look like a hero or zero in that. So and I've been a Giants fan all my life. It's in England there was only 3 TV channels growing up, and on the 3rd channel, ITV, they showed the Eastern Conference, so just those 4 teams. So my brother was a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I became a New York Giants fan, and that's how it started. And I've cheered the Big Blue ever since. So.
Would you say it's the most complex sport you've ever played? Like just the little technical details about it.
Very much so. Overcomplicated sometimes, especially when you play a game like rugby, which is heads up, and then suddenly everything you do is 23 seconds long. And then another group comes in 23 seconds long and they go out and you come in. Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's a team sport. It's a tough team sport because you're separated out in offense, defense, and I was lucky to play both. But you kind of you get lost in actually looking after each other as you do in rugby. Rugby's 15 plus your finishers, 22, 23 of you, and you know what's going to happen and when it's going to, it's a very, very confusing sport, American football. But when it's played well.
So I just wanted comparing rugby to football, like hitting wise, like you would go and hit someone in rugby, and then when the first time you went to go play football, what was that experience like? Like, was it just like, holy shit, I can just drill someone in this?
Yeah, no, to be honest, because it's not coached that way. It wasn't at the time at London Blitz. The only thing I would say is that the hits upwards and in front of you were very similar. It's the blind hits that you get in American football that are the ones that hurt. And you could be running, you've got one focus, and then all of a sudden you don't even see the guy and he absolutely rams you from the side and you're down and screaming in your head and everything else. Whereas in rugby, everything's heads up. You know which way you're going to push them, which way you want to tackle them. They're going to come down your alleyway and you're going to make sure that you tackle them correctly. But you're also going to make sure they're going to get up. Nobody should ever go out in rugby intentionally to hurt somebody. You don't deserve to be on the field if that's what you want to do. The idea is to take the ball from that player. So you put him down, you get up, and you carry on. And that should be. So the hits in American football, the blind ones, they were like a car crash. I'd have bruises upside down, my back, my neck, my legs, and then and then get up and play rugby on a Sunday. But they were just different, very, very different. Yeah, there are people out that wear a helmet and pads and just run at anything and everything.
Yeah, I've always found rugby has definitely more of a flow. It's a bit more back and forth, trading blows, but rugby is just, 4 downs of set pieces. And it's very hard to, get that flow still. So,
Well, rugby's an avoidance game, right? Rugby's a game of avoidance. The whole game is based on taking the ball from one end of the field to the other and making sure you score, right? And so, but eventually everybody comes down your alleyway and you have to deal with that. So.
Yeah. So, that division in football definitely leads to some, I don't want to say animosity, but, it's hard to get that whole team rolling. But you've coached and you've had experiences getting that whole team rolling. You've coached soccer, tennis, rugby, and American football. So do you have a favorite sport to coach? Do you prefer one to another?
I think rugby. I mean, rugby's the game. Rugby's that game that just gives you everything, right? You get up on a game day morning, and even now it's practice days, Tuesday, Thursdays. I'm still anxious and excited of what's going to happen that night, hoping that you can put everything together for the group that's coming there, because you don't know what kind of day they've had. You're hoping they've had a good day and they're going to bring everything to the practice, but that doesn't happen all the time. And sometimes you get frustrated and think, you know what, we're not paying these guys, so be kind, be understanding. Hopefully they put everything you want to, and they get everything out of it that they want to. And then game day is just special. I mean, I still retch first thing in the morning when I get that feeling, and I still, you're worried because you feel like a father walking up and down the line, because you're sending these lads out to play a real tough game. You're hoping they're all going to come back safely. You hope they're going to have fun, and they're going to want to do it again. And so yeah, rugby is everything. Rugby teaches, something I read the other day, rugby teaches you that life is a team sport. And that is true, really true. And the camaraderie you get in rugby is unlike any other sport in the world. You simply walk into a bar anywhere in the world and somebody says, oh, wait, what sport? Rugby. You have a conversation. There's no animosity. There's no silliness. There's nothing. It's cool.
Oh yeah, my father, he doesn't have enough Welsh to fill his pinky nail, but we still go there. And went to just outside Cardiff, and we were sitting at a bar with some family friends we have from over there, and we're just laughing and joking, and 75% of the conversation's rugby, but there are some hardships to the game, and really any game. So could you tell us a little bit about some hardships you've had in the game?
Yeah. Yeah, there's, the hardships are in the early days when it was an amateur sport till 95, 96, 97, when the money started to come into it. The players were, trying to do a full-time job, keep a roof over their family's head and earn a living, but also training 5, 6, 7 times a week, right? So, and playing as well. We back in the 90s, 80s, 90s, they weren't called concussions, they were called bell ringers. And you don't really know how many you've had. I can't tell you. I can probably think back and know when and how, and it's probably too many that I even want to talk about. But I can tell you that most of those bell ringers or concussions were caused by me going into a ruck or a maul or a tackle wrong. Most injuries I've had, apart from one, have been where I've actually been in the wrong position at the wrong time. So actually 2, broken nose, a punch. That wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. That was just vicious. But, I was paralyzed, and I was 6 months in hospital with no feeling whatsoever down the left-hand side. Just went down for a ball, a guy kicked on, pure accident. And I got up, walked off the field, and it wasn't until I walked off the field that the spinal cord flipped and it got stuck between 2 vertebrae. And then I broke the T3, and that's when it changed things from there. But, the hardships are that now professional rugby, your career can be over so quickly. And, if you haven't got an education, where a lot of these boys aren't going on to college or university because there isn't that sort of step through to professionalism, they can lose everything so quickly in a young age, from either being paralyzed or 7, 8 concussions, loss of memory, and that's probably the hardships that you see and the stories you see. And then, of course, the hardest stories are the ones where, unlike myself, I was able to walk again. They're still in wheelchairs now, and that's really sad to see. It's really tough to watch, but it's you play the games because you love the game and you want to play it. But yeah, it's tough to watch.
So unfortunately, you've spent some of your career in a hospital bed. And one of the most prolific ones, in my eyes at least, is a can of beans turned into cancer remission.
That was well, it was my 50th birthday. We played a Mublin game, and then I had a 50th birthday here at the house, and it was absolutely rammed. I don't know how many people. We just had a brand new deck built. And the decks sustained, I don't know, 100 people on the back of it, so it's still standing now. So it was a hell of a party. But one of my friends bought me a bag of British food products to celebrate my 50th. And in there was a can of baked beans. And a couple of days after my 50th, I went to get the can of baked beans out of the cupboard, and I dropped it, and it missed the side, and it hit my second toe on my right foot next to my big toe. And it was a lot of pain for a couple of days, and I tried to ignore it and walk it off. And I thought, what is it broken? So I taped it to the other toe, and then ended up going to the hospital, and they cut the tape off. And then what happened was I got an infection in that break. And that infection went up my leg, went into my knee, and it went in my bone and my skin and my blood. And then over a period of time, in about 3-4 weeks, it went both up my right leg across my groin, and then chose, thankfully for me, to go right down my left leg and into my left foot. And I ended up in hospital with a real high infection level. And I was in there for 19 days in the ICU and Unit 3. And then while I was in there, trying to recover from this, high as a kite most of the time on these amazing drugs they were giving me because I was in so much pain, they found that I had cancer on my kidney, and that needed to come out. And so, I do believe things happen for a reason. I'm not going to lie to you that when I was in there for 19 days, I wanted to beat the shit out of that can of baked beans. But now that can of baked beans sits on my trophy cabinet downstairs in the basement with everything else. And because it happened for a reason. It saved me, right? It's that tumor I may not have seen, and it was coming out of the top of the left kidney, and if that had exploded my lungs, I probably wouldn't be having this chat, boys. So things happen for a reason. It took 6 months to get rid of the infection, and then I was shipped off to Moncton, and they did this amazing 5 days. I had an operation in for 5 days. They go in, they cut it all out, get rid of it, and then I'm lucky, very lucky. So things happen.
Now, you've actually been sober since that date, haven't you?
I have, yeah. It was a choice. Well, I wouldn't say straight after. I got to say, I had a few to celebrate in the period after that. And what happened was, the more I sort of went to have a beer or a glass of wine, and the infection started to come back in the kidney. And I sat down with my doctor, and he's like, "What do you expect?" He looked at me, he's like, yeah, okay, you're right. He said, you know, if you want to be around and you want to do these things, you got to stop. And I'm not gonna lie to you. And I was like, because rugby in my life had been, my work life and everything had been based around socializing, right? And I love that. And it was more, probably wasn't the drinking part. It was more the frightening aspect of losing the social side of what drinking and rugby and everything brings. So I'd used hypnotherapy for depression back in my 40s. And so I found a really good hypnotherapist here on the island. And I went to see her and I said, listen, it's going to sound crazy because I should be doing this for health reasons anyway, but I'm not strong enough to stop drinking. I'm just not strong enough to be able to stop, even though it's going to save me and do the right things. And she said, that's not stupid because you're sat here asking for help. And that was 27 months ago. And I see her every 3 months and we talk about it. It doesn't even cross my mind. I'm very, very lucky to say again that it did sort of come just at the right time that non-alcoholic beverages became an absolute positive in the world everywhere. And it went from crappy zero Budweiser to an incredible range of beers and wines and amazing, for me. So once I realized that this is what I wanted to do and my family were pleased with it, then it was to tell the movement. And we had a 6-week stretch where we had semi-final, final, semi-final, final, and bus journeys and camaraderie and everything. And I thought, if I can get through that in October, November, then I can get through anything. And with the help of those boys who never put any pressure, never questioned anything. And I got to say, there were some of the boys that were there by my bed when I was in hospital. It became really easy for me. And I don't regret a minute. I was talking about it earlier today. I don't regret 1 minute of not drinking anymore.
Yeah, I'm 17 months myself, and every day gets easier, and certainly the non-alcoholic bevies too. Certainly some good ones on the island too. But you're very outspoken on mental health as well. Bell Let's Talk did a piece on you, and we're in the shadow of Bell Let's Talk Day. So could you share your feelings about Bell Let's Talk and the piece you did?
Yeah, I mean, Joe, Bell Let's Talk. I'm not going to talk about the negative side that's come out about it, because I think that's something that needs to be dealt with within their own company, and it's not for me to really judge that. What Bell Let's Talk did was get people talking about it, and gave me an opportunity 3 years ago on the CBC and through UPI to talk about my journey and really share much of everything I've just talked to you about, boys, being 15 years of age, scared stiff, all those things. And what it does is that the more we speak, the more we share, the more we communicate, the better it will be for everybody. It was an incredible reaction from me on this island. I wasn't really known. I'd only been here for 2 years, and I didn't really know too many people, or even though my job at UPI was community based. So I think it shocked a few people that this guy was going to talk about it. But what it was, and the reactions from the community and everything else in my family was pretty amazing. And I still get people thank me and share that they've watched it over again, they kept it, they listened to it, and that I was open to sharing. And there was people in the 70s who'd never been able to talk about the bullying that they went through in school, and it was amazing. And it wasn't a journey of self-righteousness. It was a journey of, it was my turn to share, and I'm really glad I did it. Really glad.
So you just brought up bullying. You yourself were bullied growing up. And was sports a way of getting away from it all for you?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, when I was on the field of play, they couldn't touch me, right? I was very lucky that I was good at sports. So people wanted you to be part of their team. And it wasn't really the athletes that I was around that were bullying me. It was people that were outside the sporting environment and were trying, when I look back, they were trying to build a life for themselves and trying to position themselves within school. So, and they couldn't find sport to be in that because they weren't athletes. So it was easier to be in a gang and being idiots kind of thing. So I look back and I respect that. I've met a lot of them since. And, you can see them in their eyes and like, holy Christ, what's he going to do to us? I've been there. Bullying isn't, and retaliation isn't the answer to anything. So sport is an amazing way of making you part of something. We all want to be where something, right? We want to be part of something, where something that we can say, hey, I'm a mudman, or I play hockey, or I play soccer, or my daughter plays softball, or she plays basketball, my sons play rugby. And you want to be part of something because it's exciting to be part of something, and it gives you that buzz, right? But for my early years, I'd have that buzz, and the minute the game was over, I knew I was in trouble. And that was kind of sad, really.
And were you like, was it something that you just dreaded every time the whistle would blow, knowing that the game was over and you'd go home and then you'd have to go back to being bullied every day at school?
I'm not gonna lie to you, it was 3 years. Yeah, it was 3 years till I did what I had to do. And am I proud to do it? No, but if I hadn't done it, it would have carried on for the next 2 years after that, and I couldn't last that long. I couldn't last that long. So I had to resort to where they were just to prove that I could fight back. And once I did, I'm sorry to say that probably somebody else then got their attention.
So obviously some tough moments came from your playing days. Tell us about some of the good.
Oh, wow. Winning leagues, winning in England, we're broken down to leagues and then county, which is provincial. So Surrey. And then it was London leagues and then national leagues and everything else. So I think winning team sports is just something very, very special. It's when you put everything in England, our seasons go for 9 months, right? It's a long haul. You're probably playing 1-2 games a week, and then you're practicing the whole time. And it's through Christmas as well, Christmas, Boxing Day, New Year's Day, everything. So you have to really be focused into it, and you really want to do it. So, achievements are being the best you can, winning when we did, being part of a club, seeing it grow, knowing that the game of rugby is so different now than it was when we played. My brother and I went to Harlequins in 2019 to see our club play. There was 84,000 people in the stands. You'd be lucky to get 150, a dog and a meat pie, right? Back in 1980, 88, 89. Well, probably more than that. But, it's just because of the TV money and the crowds and the way it's been manufactured into sharing this amazing game. It's just huge. It's so different. You can't, like the jerseys back in the 80s and 90s, they got wet. You're carrying an extra 20, 30 pounds around. Now they're all just, the tight stretch and they all look good in them. Well, mostly. But that big thing and the collar, and you had no pads on and you just about had a cheap mouth guard that you got from, I don't know, from the dentist or from the, now it's so different, but it's the ethics of sport is about camaraderie. It's about team. If you have a team and you can be part of a team, it outweighs everything.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you got that from sports, your camaraderie side, but you have a family of your own now. And how does sports play a role in your family?
Huge. When I met Cindy, it was in a gymnasium in London. And she's a school teacher, but she'd also played basketball all the way through school on PEI. She played for Canada. She played in Canada Games, year at UPI, but massive into basketball. She coaches herself. Her father's been on the island coaching for 40 odd years. He was president of Basketball Canada, so you can imagine. So there's 2 athletes just gone boom. But when I met her, there wasn't really much basketball happening in England. I'm like, you should play rugby. So she ended up playing number 8 for Sutton Epsom for 2 seasons. Until she getting pregnant with our first son. And then, sport is everything. So Sam and Lewis both play soccer and rugby and basketball. Sam played basketball. Lewis and Sam will be playing rugby again this year for the Mud, and they're going to start coming back out again, which is fantastic. Sadie loves basketball, but her passion is softball, and softball doesn't get played in England at all. I mean, it's baseball, softball, it's cricket, right? I don't ever see Sadie playing cricket. But softball is everything to her. And it's such a cool, this tiny little island produces amazing athletes, amazing coaches, and just the facilities to be able to play all this sport is second to none. And, it's so easy to find a club and be part of something and then being so welcoming. I can't get over the ability of these coaches in all sports. It's exceptional.
So I was going to ask you, since you moved to PEI, how's it been? Like, has it been welcoming? Has it been like transparent for you? Like,
yeah, I guess the first time I came here was 2000. And it took me 3 days to get here because I left on the 26th of December, and there was a snowstorm, and ended up getting here on the 28th or 29th or something like that. And I thought, if it take me 3 days to get here, that this is somewhere I can live. And Cindy always said, you know, you've got to look in our future that Canada is where we want to be, right? And the minute I came to this place, I knew it was where I wanted to be. And so it just took time with our children to get them to the age where we could fit them into the school system. So we always wanted to come here. And this island, if you want to be here, they know, and they'll embrace everything. If you come here for work and it's like, you know, I can't wait to get off this, they'll shove you out the other side, right? So, but this has been the best thing that's ever happened to all 5 of us. We've all grown so much since moving here. It's a quirky little place, but it's got the heart of a lion, and we love everything and anything about this place. It's been fantastic for all of us.
Yeah, so on the call right now, we have 3 outsiders. Justin's from Nova Scotia. I'm from the States. You're from England.
Right.
You know, none of us born in PEI, but PEI is known for, in the summer at least, not so much right now, but golf. You picked up some golf since you've been here. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so once my contract was finished at UPI in the promotions community engagement piece, and that sort of coincided with the end of the Nationals in 2020, and COVID suddenly being what it is now. We didn't know what it was going to be. Not a lot you can do with community engagement when you're not allowed to see anybody do anything. And I was very lucky that the opportunity to work at Fox Meadow had come up, Fox Meadow Golf Course in Stratford, which is just around from where I live. I'd heard, I was a member there when I first came here, so I knew what a club it was. And they were looking for a community promotions, sales. But at the same time, COVID's kicking in, you're thinking, how are we going to do this? But what was amazing for us was the fact that we gave the calls to the community and said, listen, even if it's for an hour or 2 hours a day, why don't you come and walk here? Get out your house, get out of this lockdown, you know, and just come. You know, we'll do everything that's right within all the rules and regulations, but just, even if it doesn't matter. We sent out a message in April, May saying, if your kids are bouncing off the walls, bring them to Fox Meadow and hit golf balls. Holy moly. It went nuts. We had more children turning up and being dropped off for 2 hours a day. And it was fantastic. It was just incredible. We built a little clubhouse attached to it downstairs. We gave them their own area. And so what happened was, once the kids were saying this is a really cool place to be, then the parents came and played. And so, you know, it was such a great 2020 for us, being able to offer that sort of sanctuary place. When season, sorry?
You cut out a little bit on your voice.
Oh, sorry. So offering a sanctuary in 2020 for people to come with the families was kind of cool, because then when season 21 came round, last year was so busy and it was so much fun. And so 2022 is going to come around, and we're really looking forward to that, because it's right in the heart of Stratford. There's a lot of population here. We've great partnerships with a restaurant now, and it's a fun place to be. And golf should be fun. If you're going to play on the PGA, PI and our courses, come play with your friends, get a score, want to beat it the next day, and come back and think, wow, that was a fun day out. If you're going to come going, oh, you know, I can't believe I did this, and I can't believe I did that, and my scores were, no, just,
Yeah,
it's a great game.
Stratford has grown a lot in the last 5 years, I've noticed.
It is. I mean, it's only going to get bigger as well as the population grows, and you know, the Fox Meadow is part of the Gray family, and the Gray family, you put out that plan for what it looks like and how it's going to grow as a town and a city, and it's exciting times. But as long as we keep the fundamentals of family and community are at the heart of it, it will be a great place to live. So,
So I want to go back a little bit to mental health. A current discussion topic right now is the fact that gyms, I know they're going to be open again Monday, but gyms have been closed for the last 2 weeks. But even though saying that, the malls were staying open. Do you think that is hurting a lot of people's mental health that can't get to the gym, that use the gym every day to get away from everything?
If I'm going to be honest with you, I think the mental health side of things would probably be for those people working in the shops in the mall. That would be confusing. Why is it different for them to stand there all day long and people shop around them, but gymnasiums and other places and restaurants were shut down and you weren't serving face to face? I think, you know, if we're going to look at what was more troublesome for me was that there didn't seem to be a care for those people in the malls working. And if you can't go 2 weeks without going to a gym and you can't train at home, I'm sorry, but you can do that. But in a pandemic, when everybody else seems to be looked after, apart from obviously frontline workers, it's okay, we'll leave the stores open. And I'm just as bad. I went shopping. I went food shopping. I took my daughter to the mall. I'm a hypocrite. But if you're going to talk about where the pressure for mental health was, it would be not for the people that couldn't get to the gyms. It would be the people that went in every single day to work in those malls and in those shops and were facing it every day. Mm-hmm. That's where we need to give the support to and get them through that. Because I think there's a lot of people with a lot of fair animosity to the way that it went. Mm-hmm. And our mental health and mental wellness programs on this island are good, but they could be far, 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 far better. And the more we sort of push the government for funding, and I don't mean build another building, don't build another welcome center or anything like that, because if you suffer depression, and I'm one of them, the hardest thing to do is to open a door and walk into a room or walk into a building and ask for help. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't. And so there's got to be different ways that we can look at this and do it and communicate and just don't build another building. You can't. I was very lucky that I was caught by a friend of mine who said to me, Leigh, you're not yourself. I didn't know for 15 years he was a life coach. I didn't even know that. But the minute he said, Leigh, you're not yourself, because it came from a different voice and a different angle and a different everything, and I didn't know where I was going, I went home that night, slept so well, and then the next 6 months we worked on getting me back to where I was. And 95% of the time you think it is what's causing the depression and the anxiety and the anxiousness isn't what it is. It really isn't. And it's just the mind being a complete bastard, that it chooses how to mess you up and beat you up when you want it. And if you get both sides of the brain, the conscious and subconscious, telling you you're worthless, it's a really shitty place to be.
So leading into that, you just said about depression. You were also a suicide prevention coach. Can you tell us about that experience and why you did it?
It was kind of interesting. I was very lucky to do it. It was something that came out of the blue. It was when we were looking at student athletes in a UPI and how we could support them more. And through the processes I'd gone through and the experiences I had with life coaches and whatever, it's kind of interesting to see that most people that are struggling aren't going to come up to you and tell you that they're struggling. They're just going to suddenly be on the outside of your eye where you can just see them, and they'll put themselves in your line of sight when you're least expecting it. And that's because they don't want to be seen, but they want to be seen. It's one of those, depression and anxiety is a contradiction. You want to be seen, but you want to hide. You want to be heard, but you got nothing to say, right? So at UPI, I was very lucky at the same time that they started to do this Assist Talk, which was suicide prevention courses, and then Safe Talk, which was also about being able to communicate through the student athlete programs. And I did it through UPI, and that's how I got my certification from that. And then when it came back, we just gently, when we were doing the introductions at the beginning of the seasons, we let them know that I was there if they wanted to talk, or they wanted to text, or they wanted to email, they wanted everything. It was called an open door policy, but it wasn't about my office. I think I probably only ever had one meeting in an office. Door was open and they were there with a friend. The rest of it was really just walking around campus. Grant, first time I ever met you on campus, and just letting people know they knew that they could chat. And it wasn't just about student athletes. Then it became with student affairs, and it became with the student union. And I was very lucky that people trusted just to walk past and say hi, or bump into me, or I chat. And then we started to get these huge amounts of international students come through in the last year and a half, 2 years of me being there. And the easiest way to communicate and just say, I'm going to walk past you. And I remember doing it many times, and just say, I'm going to give you a thumbs up. I want a thumbs back, right? And that was the way to communicate. And I can't tell you how many times I got a lot of thumbs up, but I got a lot of thumbs down. And then that's the way you get to chat and stop and sit and talk. It doesn't always have to be in a room, and it doesn't always have to be structured. It can be at any time, at any place.
Yeah. So through coaching, through all your experiences, combining all that, what 1 or 2 pieces of advice would you have for someone who is struggling?
Keep turning up. Keep turning up. Because the minute it's easier not to, right? It's easy. It's easier just to lock yourself away and hope that somebody's going to realize. And unfortunately, we live in a world where, yeah, you know what? He hasn't turned up. Yeah, you know what? He hasn't turned up. Probably 3 times you can say, yeah, you know what? He hasn't turned up, and you're done. You never get a message or a call again, right? So try to keep turning up, but also once you're there, try and embrace what's in front of you. And it's the hardest thing, as I said, because you don't want to be seen. You want to be seen, but you don't want to be seen, and you want to be heard, but you've got nothing to say. So when you're in the practice sessions, try and give everything you can to make it about yourself and how you feel, because it's so difficult. Don't worry about the coaches. Just do what's right for you, because if you get to a coaching session and you are putting in a tremendous effort that makes you feel good playing a sport that you love, the coaches will see it. Coaches will see it. We're not in the 80s anymore when the coaches want to expect you to run and puke and just, be an absolute mess at the end of every practice session. And it's not like that anymore. One of the biggest parts of coaching is social work. And I mean it genuinely. And I enjoy that part of it. It's knowing your players. It's understanding them. It's knowing they're not quite right or they're not quite happy. There's times when you have to bark. You have to, because every now and then it can be what we call petulant. It'd be like, I just don't want to do this. And you have to bark as a coach. But at the end of the day, we're putting you out to cross a white line to play the toughest game in the world. You've got my respect and you'll get my respect. And if you turn up Tuesday, Thursdays to practice and then play hard on Saturdays and you're still studying or you're still working, I got your back. Nothing's going to come anywhere near you. And that's how we work as a coaching team, both backs, forwards. Nothing's going to hurt you. Nothing's going to come near you. One of us will catch you. And that's the way it should be.
Well, Leigh, thank you very much for coming on the show. Fans, thank you for listening to episode 6 of the Waterboyz podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you're listening to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify podcasts, make sure to follow along. So thank you very much. And
it's been an absolute pleasure, boys. Thank you so much for asking.
Thank you very much. And have a great day, everyone.
And